Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 8 4 key game picks. Before we talk about Week 8, too much went on in week number 7, so I am not going to get through everything to talk about, but let's just say that last week in week number 7, this was more of probably the wildest, wackiest week I've ever seen. You could look at a couple things here. Obviously, probably one of them was there is no more undefeated teams. Minnesota went down to the Eagles last week, which was really surprising the way the Vikings offense played in the first 6 weeks of the regular season until they hit a wall with the Philadelphia Eagles. Finally, Carson Wentz finally woke up in that game, and their offense really got it going. But obviously, the key was the turnovers in that one. That really gave Minnesota a ton of problems last week. Let's see. The Packers finally got back on track, which when you're playing a sorry Bears team, that should be the game you want to get back on track here. Let's see what else went on in week number 7. Well, after seeing the Patriots and the Steelers game, I mean, like I said last week, without Roethlisberger, Pittsburgh's going to struggle, and they're going to struggle big time, and it couldn't come at a better time for them. I think they're on their bye week this week, I think. But this is clearly obvious that the New England Patriots are the heavy favorites in the AFC conference. I don't see anybody in that conference really stopping them. It's just going to be only a matter of time before. I mean, they got to be heavy favorites now to go to the Super Bowl, regardless of how they finish. Even at the 1 seed, they're going to practically clinch everything by the holidays. Probably one of the biggest shockers of Week 7 was the Chargers beating the Falcons. That was a shocker. I mean, Atlanta really steamrolled the Chargers earlier in that game, and obviously, I don't know what happened to the Falcons in the second half of that game. Their offense and defense just completely fell apart. The Chargers were able to fight their way back to force overtime, and I think everybody's questions are on their mind right now on Dan Quinn. Why did he go for it on 4th down? I mean, you go 4th and 1, and you don't get the first down. The Chargers get the ball in their territory, and what happened? The Chargers defense actually stood up to them, and they ended up winning They ended up getting a field goal to win it in OT. So now a lot of questions now riding on the Falcons on their 2-game losing streak. You can't use the excuse from 2 weeks ago from the pass interference anymore. Now questions are riding on, is this team going to head for another major collapse in the second half of the season? If for the Falcons' sake and all that, they really need to get their act together. Otherwise, it could be a major collapse, and somebody else in that division could end up winning it. But the way the NFC South division is, look, this is Atlanta's division for the taking now. I mean, the entire NFC South is just a terrible division. And finally, we get to the Sunday night Three Stooges bloopers game. A game that ended 6-6 in a tie, that tie will go into my record, on my official record in my blog, including my key game picks. So yeah, a tie will be added to my record, thanks to these two teams. 2 missed field goals in overtime, and really none of that happened. If prior to that Arizona attempt for the field goal, which blatantly hit the upright. I mean, there was a play before that where one of the players got the ball crossing the plane, and I'm not going to blame the replays officials or anything else. I blame that on the Arizona Cardinals. If whoever had that ball going into the end zone, crossing the plane, they should have told the head coach, get that reviewed. I know I scored the touchdown here. I don't know what happened. The Cardinals actually won that game, but they didn't get that reviewed. If that would have been reviewed, the Cardinals would have easily won the game. And yet they didn't get that reviewed. They kicked the field goal. They missed. They were lucky the Seahawks missed that field goal at the end too, which basically ended in a 6-6 tie. I was literally laughing my butt off in this game because I've never seen anything like it. 2 missed field goals, and then this was a wacky game. I don't know, as Jim Rome tweeted the other night, is this the best worst game ever or the worst best game ever? Yeah, Week 7 really was, it was completely the Twilight Zone. Some things just didn't seem right. But anyways, that week is over. Hopefully in week number 8 we have some better results and hopefully some better picks for me because I didn't do great last week. But let's see what happens as we get into the key game picks. All right, let's start with key game number 1. It is the Chargers at the Broncos. Yes, I'm actually going to talk about the Chargers here. And the reason for that is the Chargers, in the midst of it, they're back. They're kind of back in the hunt in the AFC West. This is no joke. For a team that's in last place, they're still in the midst of things here. Now, Rivers last week winning in that wild overtime game, 27 of 44, 371 yards and 1 touchdown pass. He played very well last week, as the Chargers finally get things going their way. Now, Simeon in the Monday night game against the Texans went 14 of 25, 157 yards and 1 touchdown pass. So you could say for both of these teams right here, I mean, the Denver Broncos, they were lucky that the Texans are not playing well. But if you look at it this way, the Broncos know the Chargers very well, and they know they're not going to take them lightly. Now, Denver is a 5.5-point favorite. It might get a little bit lower by the end of the week. It could go down to 4 points maybe. But 5.5, just for the sake of this video, I will stick with it for now, but check back on every line, wherever website you go to check for football lines. Don't be surprised if this game goes down to 4 points here, because the Chargers right now are finally getting back in the midst of things. But this is a kind of game that I don't know if the Chargers are going to be for real in this game or not. This is where Denver needs to show up in this game. And it's going to be a very close game. This game is a toss-up. It's not a sure pick here, even though Denver's a pretty good favorite in this one. But I'll stick with the Denver Broncos here. I just think, to me, the Chargers they always have trouble on the road, except last week's game in Atlanta. They were able to come back and win. But lately, I don't know which Charger team is going to show up in this game. That's what I got to wonder. Will it be the same old 2016 earlier part of the season for the Chargers, or will we finally see this new team that should be on a roll? That should have been at least 5-2, 5-1, or maybe 4-2 right now. But it's hard for the Chargers to win in Denver, but this is why I'm going to go with the Broncos here. I just think the Broncos defense will step up. This is something that Phillip Rivers had trouble with, even though despite they did win in San Diego a couple of weeks ago. But I'll go with Denver this time. I think they'll get the win this time. And this is why I'm going to pick the Broncos here. Broncos over the Chargers. Key game number 2. This is one of my sure picks here, but this is a key game for some reason. The New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. The Patriots are 6-point favorite in this one, and that's about right. Buffalo is about 2. I think they're 2 games back. They're still in the midst of things, and they did beat the Patriots a couple of weeks ago, but that was because Brady wasn't playing. But when you got Brady playing in this game right now, this is trouble for the Buffalo offense and defense here. And this is a sure pick here. There's no question. Well, let me throw in some statistics before I make my pick. Brady going 19 of 26, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyrod Taylor for the Bills, 14 of 28 in the loss, and 221 yards and 1 touchdown pass in the loss to the Miami Dolphins. Now, for the Bills' sake, you don't want to be playing terribly, especially when you got the Patriots coming in. And this is a sure pick here. You got to go with the New England Patriots here. And the only reason why it's a key game is because the Bills are still not far behind in that division. But let's face the facts. We all know the Patriots are going to win the AFC East very easily. And this is why I got to go with the New England Patriots here. This is an obvious pick here. Can't argue with this one here. Patriots over the Bills. Key game number 3. This actually is going to be a good one here, but let's see what happens. It is the Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons are actually a 3-point favorite in this one, but I guarantee you that by the end of the week, it's probably going to go down to 2 points, maybe even 1 point. A lot of questions, a lot of the pundits and the experts are wondering now what Atlanta team now is going to show up in this game. Now, this is a game Atlanta has to have here to really get back in the midst of teams to show that they're not going to be the same team like last year where they get on a roll and then they collapse here. Now, Matt Ryan went 22 of 34 for 273 yards and 1 touchdown pass. He had a pretty good game, but unfortunately the turnovers killed him, and that bad decision to go for it on 4th and 1 really cost them the game last week. So I can't really put a lot of blame on Matty Ice here, Matt Ryan, for all of that trouble here. You gotta blame the coach on that one. Now, Aaron Rodgers last week in a huge win against the Bears, going 39 of 56, 326 yards and 3 touchdown passes. So you could say probably the Packers are finally back on a roll here. And this is why it's hard for me to go against experience with the Packers, along with an Atlanta Falcon team that is really trying to find their identity after a few years. This is why I got to go with the Green Bay Packers here. I just think Atlanta now is in the midst of some trouble here. I mean, that loss last week probably may have been even more devastating than the game against Seattle a couple of weeks ago. Even though now Green Bay's going to be without Lacey, but I think Aaron Rodgers will have a big day here now. It's up to Atlanta's defense to get a stop. This is actually going to be a close game here. I expect a close game here, but I think Green Bay's going to pull it out here. I think they know Atlanta's weaknesses, and obviously the Seahawks and Chargers probably exposed them. So this is why I'm going to go with the Packers here. I think the Packers will get the win in a very close game. Packers over the Falcons. And finally, key game number 4, a big one in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys, 4.5-point favorites coming off the bye week. The points could be a little bit lower by the end of the week. But for the purposes of this video, I'll stick with 4.5 points for now. So check back the lines at the end of the week. Don't be surprised if this goes down to 3.5, maybe 3. But let's see. Now, Wentz went 16 of 28 last week for the Eagles, 138 yards and 1 touchdown pass in a game that the Eagles really needed to get back on track, and a big win over the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Cowboys were on, like I mentioned before, they were on a bye week, and here are the stats from Prescott's last game against the Packers, in which they dominated. He went 18 of 27, 247 yards and 3 touchdown passes a couple of weeks ago against the Packers. Now, this is going to be this is a game that is not a sure pick here either. Both teams are they're pretty kind of evenly matched, but Dallas may have the better offense here. But this is going to be quite a game here. I expect a good Sunday night game here, no question about it. It's a very, very tough pick here. But let's just see for the Cowboys in their own division now. Let's just see how he does against the rest of the NFC East. Now, tough one here, but I'm leaning towards the Eagles here, and I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think Prescott is due for a bad game here, and Wentz and the Eagles are finally getting back on a roll here, and it's going to be a very, very close game, no question about it. This is a tough one to pick here, not a sure pick here. I'm going to go with the Eagles here in kind of a mini upset here. Like I said, this game could go either way. I don't know, in all honesty, because this is expect a very good game on Sunday night. Better than the Three Stooges game we had last week. So this is the pick. I'm gonna stick with it though. Eagles over the Cowboys. All right, everybody. That wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 8. Check back tomorrow on October the 26th for my blog for all the NFL lines and all of my picks for week number 8 at thesportblog.blogspot.com. Remember, my video goes up first and then my blog post goes up after that. So be sure to check that out. And until then, everybody, enjoy your football weekend, and I'll see you back here next week.